Commander Hannah Park stood at the command center of the Defiance, her eyes fixed on the massive alien ship that had appeared at the edge of Earth's solar system. The Defiance, humanity's most advanced warship, seemed small in comparison. This unexpected visitor had arrived 3 days ago, silently holding position near Neptune's orbit. "Any changes in their status, Officer Nary?" Hannah asked, her voice steady despite the tension that had gripped the crew since the aliens' arrival. "None, Commander. They maintain position. No weapons charged, but their shields remain active," replied Navigation Officer Narration without looking up from her console. Hannah nodded, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. At 35, she was younger than most ship commanders, but her record in the United Earth Space Force was impeccable. The Defiance was her first deep space command, and until 3 days ago, the mission had been routine. Test the ship's new systems in the outer solar system. Lieutenant Ta Kim swiveled in his chair at the communications station. "Commander, they're hailing us again. 3rd time today." Hannah straightened her uniform jacket. "On screen, Lieutenant." The main view screen flickered, and the bridge crew collectively held their breath. The alien that appeared had pale blue skin that seemed to shimmer with an inner light. Its 4 eyes, 2 large primary ones and 2 smaller ones above them, regarded the humans with what Hannah interpreted as cold disdain. "I am High Emissary Vel of the Galactic Hegemony," the alien said, its words translated by the ship's computer. "Your continued delay is disappointing." "Emissary Vel," Hannah replied formally. "As I've explained, we are waiting for instructions from Earth Command. This is our first contact with your species." "With any species," added Vel. "Yes, your isolation is evident. The hegemony spans 300 systems and 27 species. We have watched your development for some time." The bridge crew exchanged glances. No one had suspected they were being observed. "The Hegemony Council has determined that your system lies within our sphere of influence," Vel continued. "Your species is young, primitive by our standards, but showing promise. The Hegemony offers you protection in exchange for your allegiance. Refuse, and we cannot guarantee your safety from other, interested parties in the galaxy." Hannah felt a chill at the thinly veiled threat. "That's a significant decision for our entire planet. We'll need to bring your offer to our leaders." "Of course," Vel replied with what might have been a smile. "You have 48 Earth hours to respond. I suggest you use them wisely." The screen went dark. "Communications, send the full recording to Earth Command immediately," Hannah ordered. "Yes, Commander," Tay responded, his fingers already moving across his panel. Science Officer Jun Lee approached Hannah, datapad in hand. In his 50s, Jun was the oldest member of the bridge crew and one of Earth's leading xenophysicists. "Commander, I've completed my analysis of their ship." Hannah guided him to the tactical station, away from the rest of the crew. "Tell me what we're dealing with." "Their technology is advanced, certainly," Jun said, showing her the scans. "Energy readings suggest weapons capabilities far beyond our standard defenses. However," he paused, lowering his voice, "I've analyzed their propulsion systems. They use a form of gravimetric drive, efficient but not revolutionary." "And?" Hannah prompted, sensing his excitement. "Our new quantum drive gives us an advantage they don't know about. Their sensors have been probing us, but the drive's signature is masked when inactive. They think we're using conventional fusion propulsion." Hannah considered this information. The quantum drive was Earth's most closely guarded technological achievement, developed in secret over the past decade. It allowed for near-instantaneous travel between points in space through what scientists called probability tunneling. The Defiance was the first ship equipped with a working prototype. "Good," Hannah replied. "We may need it sooner than we thought." As June returned to his station, Security Chief Bohan approached. "Commander, what do you make of this hegemony? Their offer sounds more like a demand." "I agree," Hannah said quietly. "And I don't like the 48-hour deadline. The next 12 hours passed in tense preparation. Earth Command sent a continuous stream of instructions, while the crew ran diagnostics on all systems. In her quarters, Hannah reviewed the historical records of humanity's theoretical first contact protocols, finding them woefully inadequate for the reality they now faced. A chime at her door interrupted her thoughts. "Enter," she called. Engineer Suk Yun stepped in, looking exhausted but determined. "Commander, we've completed the shield modifications you requested. We've boosted capacity by 23%. Will it be enough if they decide to attack?" Suk hesitated. "Honestly, no, but it might buy us time to activate the quantum drive." Hannah nodded. "That may be all we need. Get some rest, Suk." The next day, Earth's response came through. Lieutenant Todd delivered the encrypted message to Hannah's quarters personally. "They want us to stall," Hannah said after reading it. "Request more information about the hegemony. Express interest but avoid commitment." "Playing for time," Tay observed. "Do you think it will work?" Hannah's expression was grim. "No, but we'll try." When they opened communications with the alien ship again, Emissary Vel seemed less patient. Hannah delivered Earth's carefully crafted message, requesting information about hegemony membership terms and protections offered. "These details are provided after acceptance, not before," Vel replied, its tone sharper. "Your species' caution borders on suspicion, which is unhealthy." "We mean no offense," Hannah said diplomatically. "We simply need to understand what we're agreeing to." The alien's 4 eyes narrowed. "Very well. The hegemony requires resource contributions, technological exchange, and military support when requested. In return, you receive protection, trade opportunities, and access to selected hegemony technologies. And if we decline," Hannah asked directly, "then you remain unprotected. There are many predatory forces in the galaxy. Some would see your planet as merely a resource to be harvested." The implied threat hung in the air. Hannah thanked the emissary and ended the transmission. "They're scanning us again," reported Sensor Officer Min Park. "More intensively this time." 20 hours later, with the deadline approaching, Earth Command's final instructions arrived. "Request an extension for consideration." Hannah made the request, but Vel's response was immediate and cold. "No extensions. The Council requires your answer in 4 hours." After the transmission ended, Science Officer June approached Hannah at her command chair. "Commander, I've detected energy buildup in their weapons systems. They're preparing for something." They never expected us to agree, Hannah realized. This was just a formality before they take what they want. The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. "All stations, battle readiness," Hannah ordered. Quietly, Engineer Suk, "Prepare the quantum drive for emergency activation." "Commander," Jun said quietly, "I've been analyzing all our scans of their ship. There's something else you should know. Their technology is advanced, but it's standardized. They haven't innovated in what appears to be centuries. They've grown complacent." Hannah considered this. "And we haven't. Prepare a data packet for Earth Command with everything we know. If things go badly, it needs to reach them." As the deadline approached, Hannah gathered her senior officers. "Earth Command believes the hegemony intends to establish a foothold in our system, regardless of our answer. We won't let that happen. The Defiance will show them humanity isn't as primitive as they think." 3 hours later, as Hannah prepared to deliver Earth's carefully worded rejection, alarms blared across the bridge. "Multiple smaller ships launching from the hegemony vessel," Min shouted. "Attack formation." Hannah's decision was immediate. "Shields up. Activate quantum drive." As energy blasts from the alien ships approached, the Defiance shimmered and vanished, reappearing behind Neptune. The aliens' confusion was evident as they searched for the suddenly disappeared Earth ship. "Send our message now," Hannah ordered. On the view screen, Emissary Vel's face showed shock as Hannah spoke. "The people of Earth decline your offer, Emissary. And we warn you, we are not as defenseless as you believe. Leave our system now. As the Defiance prepared for whatever came next, Hannah knew humanity's place in the galaxy had forever changed. The true test was just beginning. The Defiance trembled as alarms blared across the bridge. Red emergency lights cast everything in a sinister glow. 6 months had passed since humanity's first contact with the galactic hegemony, and the situation had deteriorated rapidly. Hegemony cruiser closing in, bearing 270, called out Tactical Officer Dai Choi, his eyes locked on his station's display. They'd launched energy torpedoes. Commander Hannah Park braced herself as the ship rocked violently. The hegemony had returned with a fleet 3 weeks ago, bypassing Earth's outer defenses and establishing bases on Mars and Europa. Now the Defiance was humanity's last fully operational warship. Damage report, Hannah demanded, steadying herself against her command chair. Engineer Mina Kang's fingers flew across her console, reading the incoming data from throughout the ship. Though only 28, Mina had proven herself the most capable engineer in Earth's fleet. The adaptive shields are holding at 87%, Mina reported, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. Port-side energy conduits are strained but functional. The Defiance shuddered again as another energy blast from the hegemony cruiser struck their port side. Hannah's knuckles whitened as she gripped her command chair. The situation was critical, but not yet hopeless. Distance to target, she asked. 20,000 kilometers in closing, Navigation Officer Narration responded. They're trying to herd us toward their destroyer group. In the months since first contact, Earth had learned much about the hegemony's tactics. They preferred overwhelming force, using their larger ships to trap smaller vessels between multiple firing solutions. But the Defiance had tricks the aliens hadn't encountered before. Prepare the phase shift drive, Hannah ordered. Calculate jump to bring us directly behind their command cruiser. The bridge crew exchanged nervous glances. The phase shift technology was still experimental, capable of briefly shifting the ship into an alternate dimension before reappearing elsewhere. Each use put tremendous strain on the ship's systems. Phase shift calculations complete, announced Science Officer Jun Lee. But, Commander, I must advise that the drive coolant system is still compromised from our last jump. Another shift could overload the system. Noted, Hannah replied grimly. Mina, divert emergency power to coolant backups. Diverting now, Mina acknowledged. We'll have 1 jump, maybe 2 if we're lucky. Another blast rocked the ship, more violent than the last. Shields at 73%, Mina called out. That was their heavy cannon. On the main view screen, the hegemony cruiser loomed larger, its surface bristling with weapons. It was nearly twice the size of the Defiance, with sleek lines and an iridescent hull that seemed to drink in the darkness of space. All hands, brace for phase shift, Hannah announced over the ship-wide comm. Weapons, prepare main particle beam for immediate firing upon reemergence. Lieutenant Ta Kim's hands hovered over the phase shift controls. Ready on your mark, Commander. The ship shuddered again as a glancing blow struck their starboard side. Now, Lieutenant Kim, she ordered. Tai activated the phase shift drive. A high-pitched whine filled the bridge as reality itself seemed to bend around them. The stars on the view screen stretched, blurred, and then vanished completely as the Defiance slipped between dimensions. For 3 eternal seconds, there was nothing but a gray void. Then, with a violent lurch, the Defiance snapped back into normal space, directly behind the hegemony cruiser. The alien vessel's engines glowed a menacing purple just ahead of them. Weapons locked, announced Tactical Officer Dai Choi, his expression grim but determined. Hannah took a deep breath. Fire. The Defiance's concentrated particle beam lanced out, a brilliant blue-white stream of energy that cut through the alien ship shields as if they weren't there. The beam struck precisely at the cruiser's main engine housing. Direct hit, Day reported, unable to keep a note of surprise from his voice. On the view screen, the hegemony vessel's engines sputtered and died, secondary explosions rippling along its hull. The massive ship began to drift, powerless but still largely intact. Target's weapon systems are offline, Da continued. Life support appears functional. They're dead in space, Commander. A cheer started to rise from the bridge crew, but Hana silenced it with a raised hand. Status of the phase shift drive, she asked. Mina's expression was troubled as she examined her readings. Coolant systems failing, Commander. We won't be making another jump until we complete repairs. At least 6 hours. The destroyer group is changing course, Nari announced. They're moving to protect the disabled cruiser. Hana nodded. That gives us time. How long until they're in weapons range? At their current speed, 40 minutes, Neri replied. Enough time to transmit and get clear, Hana decided. Communications, prepare to broadcast on all Earth frequencies, encrypted package Alpha. Lieutenant Ta nodded, understanding the significance. Package Alpha contained the specifications of the Defiance's adaptive shields and targeting systems, along with tactical data on hegemony weaknesses that they'd discovered. Should I include the phase shift data? Tai asked quietly. Hana considered this. The phase shift technology was Earth's greatest advantage, but with the hegemony blockading the planet, the remaining Earth forces needed every edge they could get. Include basic operational parameters, but not the dimensional calculations, she decided. We can't risk them intercepting the complete technology. As Tai prepared the transmission, Hana moved to stand beside the tactical station, where Dai was monitoring the disabled hegemony cruiser. Any signs of distress signals? She asked. Yes, Commander. They're broadcasting on multiple frequencies, probably calling for assistance. Hana nodded. Good. I want them to tell their commanders exactly what happened here today. Commander, called Science Officer June from his station. I've analyzed the readings from our attack. Their shield configuration suggests they never expected a weapon of our design to penetrate their defenses. They underestimated us. A mistake they won't make twice, Hana replied. The transmission was prepared, and Hana returned to the center of the bridge. The faces of her crew were tired but resolute. For months, they had been testing the Defiance's systems against hegemony targets, gathering data while avoiding direct confrontation. Today marked their first decisive strike. Send the message to all Earth colonies, Hana said. The fight has begun. Tay's fingers danced across his console. Message away, Commander. All Earth outposts should receive it within the hour. Navigation. Set course for the Jupiter Shadow, Hana ordered. We'll make repairs there before our next mission. As the Defiance pulled away from the disabled hegemony cruiser, Hana watched it recede on the view screen. This was just one small victory, but an important one. Until now, the hegemony had faced no real resistance in the solar system. They had expected humanity to submit quickly after their initial attacks. What do you think they'll do now, Commander? Asked Security Chief Bohan, coming to stand beside her. Hana's expression was determined. They'll send more ships, thinking it's just about numbers. But they don't understand yet. Humanity doesn't surrender, and we learn from every encounter. As the Defiance accelerated away, leaving the disabled alien vessel behind, Hana knew that the war for Earth's survival was just beginning. But for the first time since the invasion began, they had hope. The Defiance had proven that humanity could fight back. All stations, prepare for stealth operations, she ordered. The hegemony just learned we have teeth. Now let's show them we have claws too. The Defiance slipped into the darkness of space, a single spark of resistance against the vast power of the galactic hegemony. But sparks, Hana knew, could ignite fires that even the mightiest empires couldn't extinguish. Lieutenant Ta Kim leaned over the holographic star chart, his face illuminated by the soft blue glow of projected stars and planets. 8 months had passed since the Defiance's first victory against the hegemony cruiser. 8 months of hit-and-run attacks, narrow escapes, and growing legend. We can't keep running forever, said Lieutenant Tay, tracing their recent flight path through 3 star systems. Commander Hannah Park stood beside him in the Defiance's tactical room. Dark circles under her eyes revealed the toll of constant vigilance, but her gaze remained sharp and determined. "We won't," Hannah nodded. "The hegemony expects conventional warfare. We'll give them something else entirely." The Defiance's crew had been fighting for months, striking critical hegemony facilities before disappearing into uncharted regions. Their success had been remarkable. The experimental warship had disabled supply depots, communications arrays, and even a shipyard. After each attack, they vanished using their phase shift technology, leaving confused hegemony forces searching empty space. "The hegemony has committed 12 additional battlecruisers to hunt us," Tactical Officer Dai Choi reported, joining them at the star chart. "They're spreading thin, trying to predict our next target." Hannah allowed herself a small smile. "Good. That means fewer ships blockading Earth." Reports from their home planet were grim but hopeful. While the hegemony controlled orbit and had established ground bases, resistance was fierce. Humanity refused to submit despite overwhelming odds. "How are our supplies?" Hannah asked. Engineer Mina Kang consulted her datapad. "Fuel cells at 62%. Weapons systems fully charged. Phase shift drive is stable, but we'll need to replace coolant lines after the next 3 jumps. We salvaged enough materials from that abandoned mining station last week." The ship's intercom chimed. "Commander Park to the bridge. Priority message incoming." When Hannah reached the bridge, communications specialist Jin Yu was intensely focused on his console. Jin had joined their crew 2 months ago when they rescued a human science vessel under hegemony attack. His skills with alien languages and encryption had proven invaluable. "Commander, I've decoded their latest communications," reported Jin, looking up with excitement in his eyes. "There's discord among the hegemony leadership. Some species are questioning the war against Earth." Hannah moved quickly to his station. "Show me." Jin displayed translated text on his screen. "This is internal communication between hegemony council members. The Navar representatives are arguing that the resources spent hunting the Defiance exceed the value of conquering Earth. The Zithians disagree, but the Krell seem to be supporting the Navar position. Are we sure this isn't misinformation meant to trap us?" Security Chief Bohan asked, always cautious. "The encryption was authentic," Jin confirmed, "and matches previous patterns we've intercepted." Diplomatic Officer Sun Choi approached, her expression thoughtful. Sun had been Earth's ambassador to Mars before the invasion, her diplomatic skills now serving a different purpose. "The Navar are one of the oldest species in the hegemony," Sun explained. "But they've always been treated as second-class members. Their people have been under hegemony control for centuries." "What do we know about them?" Hannah asked. "Physically, they resemble tall, slender humans, but with copper-toned skin and 4-fingered hands," Sun replied. "They were a peaceful species before the hegemony conquered them. They're known for their scientific minds and philosophical traditions." Jin's console beeped. "Commander, another transmission coming through. It's directed at us." "At us specifically?" Hannah asked, alarmed. "How did they find our communications frequency?" "Unknown," Jin replied. "But it's using a simple encryption key, almost like they want us to break it easily." "Proceed with caution," Hannah ordered. "Isolate the communication from our main systems in case it's a virus." After several tense minutes, Jin looked up in surprise. "Commander, it's from the Navar delegation. They wish to meet secretly. They're proposing coordinates and a time." The bridge fell silent as the implications sank in. "It could be a trap," Bo warned. "Or it could be our first potential ally," Sun countered. "If the Navar are truly questioning the hegemony's leadership, this could change everything." Hannah studied the proposed meeting location on the main screen. It was a small, uninhabited moon orbiting a gas giant in a neutral system. "What do we know about this location?" she asked. "It's outside regular hegemony patrol routes," Nari confirmed from the navigation station. Natural radiation from the gas giant would make long-range scans difficult. If someone wanted a secret meeting place, it's well chosen. Hannah paced slowly across the bridge, weighing their options. The Defiance had survived by being unpredictable, but taking such a risk was dangerous. "Science Officer June, your assessment?" she asked. The older man considered carefully before speaking. The Navar were known for their advanced biotechnology before they were conquered. If they've maintained any of that knowledge, they could be valuable allies. Their planets are also strategically located near major hegemony supply routes. Hannah made her decision. "We'll go, but with precautions. Prepare the shuttle craft with enhanced shields. I'll leave a small team to the surface while the Defiance remains at safe distance, ready to extract us or attack if necessary." "Commander, with respect, you shouldn't go yourself," Bo protested. "You're too valuable to risk." "Which is exactly why I must go," Hannah replied firmly. "If the Navar are serious about breaking from the hegemony, they'll want to meet our leader, not a subordinate." Over the next 2 days, the Defiance approached the meeting coordinates cautiously. They used the phase shift drive to make several random jumps along the way, ensuring they weren't being followed. When they finally arrived, they found the moon exactly as described, barren, cratered, with a thin atmosphere, but no signs of technology or habitation. No ships detected in the vicinity, Day reported after thorough scans. "If they're here, they're well hidden." "Or they haven't arrived yet," Ta suggested. Hannah selected her away team. Sun for her diplomatic skills, Bo for security, and Jun for scientific analysis. They boarded the shuttle and departed for the surface, while the Defiance retreated to the dark side of a nearby asteroid, phase shift drive primed for emergency extraction. The shuttle landed in a small crater designated in the coordinates. The team donned light environmental suits and stepped onto the dusty surface. The gas giant loomed enormous in the sky, its swirling storms casting an eerie light across the landscape. "Now we wait," Hannah said, checking her weapon discreetly. They didn't wait long. Within minutes, a shimmer appeared on the crater rim, a cloaking field deactivating to reveal a sleek vessel unlike the standard hegemony design. Its curves were more organic, its surface a burnished copper color. A hatch opened, and 3 tall figures emerged. Just as Sun had described, they resembled humans, but with copper-toned skin that matched their ship. Their movements were graceful despite the low gravity. The tallest Navar approached and bowed slightly. "Commander Park, I am Delegate Lion of the Navar Conclave. Thank you for taking the risk to meet us." "The risk seems mutual, Delegate Lion," Hannah replied cautiously. "Indeed," the alien agreed. "If the hegemony discovered our communication, we would be executed as traitors. Yet you reached out to us. Why?" "Because the Defiance has accomplished what no one believed possible," Lion explained. "You have defied the hegemony and survived. You have damaged their reputation of invincibility. And most importantly, you have given hope to those of us who have lived under their dominion for generations." "Hope is powerful," Sun remarked, "but is it enough for you to risk everything?" "We bring more than hope," another Navar said, stepping forward. "We bring knowledge. Hegemony patrol schedules, shield frequencies, communication codes, and we are not alone in our descent." Hannah's pulse quickened. "Other species within the hegemony feel as you do." 7 species have sent representatives to a secret council," Lion confirmed. "All have suffered under hegemony rule. All have watched your defiance with growing admiration. What exactly are you proposing?" Hannah asked directly. "An alliance," Lion replied simply. "We cannot openly rebel, not yet, but we can provide intelligence, sabotage from within, and eventually, when the time is right, ships and troops." Hannah smiled slightly, the first genuine smile in months. "Set course for the rendezvous point," she said into her communicator. "It's time to make some friends." As the meeting continued under the watchful gaze of the gas giant, Hannah realized that the nature of their war had just fundamentally changed. The Defiance was no longer simply a lone ship fighting against impossible odds. They were becoming the spark for a galactic rebellion. The hegemony believes itself unbeatable because it has never faced unified resistance, Lion explained. Together, we can change that. For the first time since the invasion of Earth, Hannah allowed herself to imagine not just survival, but victory. The road ahead would be dangerous, but the Defiance had found what humanity needed most: allies who shared their hunger for freedom. The golden light of Helios, an orange dwarf star, bathed the assembled fleet in a warm glow that belied the tension of the moment. 14 months had passed since Commander Hannah Park first encountered the galactic hegemony. What began as a desperate resistance by a single ship had grown into something the galaxy hadn't seen in a millennium: a true challenge to hegemony rule. On the bridge of the Defiance, now bearing battle scars like badges of honor, Commander Hannah stood with her hands clasped behind her back. Through the main viewport, she could see their unlikely coalition, ships of various designs and origins, united by a common cause. "Status report," Hannah ordered, her voice calm despite the gravity of what they were about to attempt. Lieutenant Ta Kim responded promptly from his station. "All Allied vessels report ready, Commander. The Navar science ships have deployed the quantum disruptors. The Krell battle cruisers are in defensive formation around our flanks. Earth's remaining warships are in position." Helios had once been a minor hegemony outpost. Now it represented something far more important: the first major offensive by the Alliance against the hegemony's forces. If they succeeded here, other oppressed systems would see that resistance was possible. "What about our intelligence?" Hannah asked, turning to communications specialist Jin Yu. "Confirmed, Commander. Admiral Krell's flagship departed from Central Command 6 hours ago. They expect to arrive within the hour." Jin's expression was serious. "He's bringing 3 dreadnoughts with him." A murmur ran through the bridge crew. Admiral Krell was the hegemony's most decorated commander, responsible for subjugating 12 species under hegemony rule. That he was coming personally showed how seriously they were taking this rebellion. "They're treating us as a real threat now," remarked Security Chief Bohan with grim satisfaction. "As they should," Hannah replied. "We've earned it." The past year had transformed the Defiance from a lone ship into the symbol of resistance. After meeting the Navar, they had slowly built a network of allies. First came the Krell, a warrior species who had maintained their fighting spirit despite centuries of oppression. Then the Vex, whose technical brilliance rivaled Earth's. 3 other species had joined more recently, contributing ships and resources to the cause. Earth itself was now partially free of hegemony control, though the fight continued on the ground. The knowledge shared by the Defiance had allowed Earth's remaining forces to target hegemony weaknesses effectively. "Sensors detecting multiple phase-space ruptures," announced Navigation Officer Narration suddenly. "Large ships incoming." The bridge view screen shifted to show 4 massive vessels emerging from faster-than-light travel. The largest, the flagship, was nearly 5 times the size of the Defiance, its hull adorned with the scarlet and gold markings of a high command vessel. "They're earlier than expected," Hannah noted. Tactical analysis. Tactical Officer Dai Choi studied his readings intently. Though young, Da had proven himself a natural strategist during their months of guerrilla warfare. The flagship is heavily armed, but less maneuverable than their standard vessels. The dreadnoughts are positioning to create a triangular defensive formation. Dad looked up. "Classic hegemony tactics, Commander. They're not adapting." "Their overconfidence remains our advantage," Hannah said. "Signal all ships. Prepare to implement Battle Plan Theta on my mark." Throughout the Allied fleet, crews readied themselves. This wasn't just another hit-and-run attack. This was a direct confrontation, carefully planned over months with their new allies. Science Officer Junli approached Hannah's command position. Despite his age, the excitement of discovery still lit his eyes. "Commander, I've completed the final calculations for the targeted dispersion field. If the Navar ships can generate the initial disruption, Our modified weapons should penetrate their adaptive shields at these precise coordinates. He handed her a data pad showing key points on the hegemony vessels. Hana nodded. Well done, June. Transmit the targeting data to all ships. The hegemony fleet advanced with deliberate precision, their formation impenetrable by conventional warfare standards. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Krell likely felt secure in his superior firepower and numbers. They're powering weapons, reported Dai tensely. Hold position, Hana ordered. Wait for them to commit. The first salvo from the hegemony ships lit up space, brilliant streaks of energy that crashed against the defensive shields of the outer Alliance vessels. Several smaller ships rocked under the impact, but their enhanced shields, modified with Defiance technology, held. They're advancing into the gravity well as predicted, Nari reported. Optimal position in 30 seconds. All ships, Hana commanded, her voice carrying across the communication network to every allied vessel. Prepare to execute Pattern Omega on my mark. The seconds ticked by as the hegemony fleet pressed their attack, confident in their superior firepower. They didn't realize they were being drawn into a carefully prepared trap. On the Defiance's bridge, Tactical Officer Day monitored the enemy formations closely. Commander, their flagship is moving into position. Hana studied the massive vessel on the view screen. Admiral Krell of the hegemony had finally come to face them personally. After months of humiliating defeats at the hands of the Defiance, the Admiral was determined to end this rebellion. All ships, form up on the Defiance, Hana commanded. Execute Pattern Omega. Like a perfectly choreographed dance, the Allied fleet suddenly shifted formation. Ships that had appeared to be retreating now swerved in coordinated movements, creating a complex three-dimensional pattern that confused hegemony targeting systems. The Navar science vessels activated their quantum disruptors, technology they had kept hidden from their hegemony masters for generations. Waves of energy pulsed outward, temporarily destabilizing the molecular structure of the hegemony ship's outer hull. In that moment of vulnerability, the Defiance led the attack, its weapons modified according to Science Officer Jun's calculations. The energy beams found gaps in the enemy's defenses that no one else could have discovered, striking with surgical precision. Direct hits on all primary targets, Day reported, unable to keep the excitement from his voice. Their flagship's main weapons array is offline. Throughout the Allied fleet, similar targeted strikes knocked out key systems on the hegemony vessels. The carefully coordinated attack was unlike anything the hegemony had faced in centuries. They were accustomed to overwhelming force, not precision and adaptation. Admiral Krell is attempting to regroup his forces, Jin reported from communications. They're calling for reinforcements. They won't arrive in time, Hana replied confidently. Phase 2. All ships. The next stage of the battle unfolded as the Alliance forces pressed their advantage. The Krell warships, renowned for their close combat prowess, moved in to engage the disoriented dreadnoughts. Earth ships targeted the flagship's propulsion systems, while Vex vessels deployed electronic countermeasures that further confused hegemony communications. Commander, Dag called out suddenly. The flagship is attempting to target us directly with their secondary weapons array. Before Hana could respond, the Defiance rocked violently as energy beams struck their shields. Shields holding at 63%, reported engineer Mina Kang, her hands dancing across her console to redirect power. Return fire, Hana ordered. Target their command center. The Defiance's main weapons fired, blue-white energy lancing across space to strike the hegemony flagship. The beam cut through the weakened shields and struck the towering command section. Direct hit, Dad exclaimed. Their command systems are failing. Across the battlefield, the tide had turned decisively. 2 hegemony dreadnoughts were drifting powerless, their crews abandoning ship in escape pods. The third was engaged in a losing battle with 3 Krell cruisers. Only the flagship continued to fight, though its movements were becoming increasingly erratic. We're receiving a transmission from Admiral Krell's vessel, Jin announced with surprise. On screen, Hana ordered. The image of Admiral Krell appeared, his four-eyed face contorted with rage and disbelief. Unlike the diplomat Hannah had first encountered, Krell belonged to the Zithian species, the founders of the hegemony and its most fervent believers. "This is not possible," the admiral snarled. "You are primitives. You cannot defeat the might of the hegemony." Hannah looked at him steadily. "Yet here we are, Admiral. Your ships are disabled. Your forces are retreating. I offer you the chance to surrender honorably." "The hegemony does not surrender to lesser beings," Krell spat. "This battle means nothing. We will send 100 ships to crush your pathetic alliance." "Perhaps," Hannah acknowledged. "But today, the galaxy sees that you can be defeated. Every system under your control will know that the hegemony is not invincible." She nodded to Jin, who cut the transmission. "He's preparing to overload their core," Jun warned, reading the energy signatures from the flagship. "They would rather destroy themselves than be captured." "All ships, pull back to safe distance," Hannah ordered immediately. "Let them have their gesture. We've won what we came for." As the Allied fleet withdrew to a safe position, the hegemony flagship erupted in a blinding explosion that briefly outshone the light of Helios itself. When the light faded, only debris remained where the mighty vessel had been. On the Defiance's bridge, a moment of silence fell as the crew absorbed what they had accomplished. Then cheers erupted, spreading across the communication channels to all Allied ships. Hannah allowed herself a small smile but remained focused. This was one battle, she reminded her crew as the celebration quieted. "The war is far from over. But we've shown it can be won," Ta said, his expression hopeful for the first time in months. Hannah nodded, looking out at their victorious fleet. "For Earth," she whispered, "and for freedom throughout the galaxy." The battle above Helios would soon be known across 100 worlds as the moment when the hegemony's grip on the galaxy began to weaken. The turning point had come, and the age of oppression was approaching its end. The massive hegemony flagship, Eternal Dominion, drifted silently against the backdrop of stars, its once powerful engines dark, its fearsome weapons systems disabled by the Defiance's precision strikes. 2 years of war had culminated in this final battle near the hegemony's home system. What had begun as humanity's desperate fight for survival had evolved into a galactic revolution. Commander Hannah Park stood at the viewport of the Defiance's shuttle as it approached the crippled flagship. Despite the victories of recent months, she felt no triumph, only weariness, and hope that this meeting would end the bloodshed. "Are you certain about this, Commander?" Lieutenant Ta Kim asked from the pilot's seat. "Admiral Krell is unpredictable. This could be a trap." Hannah adjusted the collar of her formal uniform. "The Admiral requested this meeting under the ancient code of parley. Even the hegemony honors that tradition." "They haven't honored much else," Security Chief Bohan remarked grimly. He checked his sidearm one last time before securing it in its holster, present as a symbol of authority, but not as an immediate threat. The shuttle docked with the hegemony vessel, the airlock cycling with a hiss. When the doors opened, they were met by a delegation of Zithian officers, their posture rigid with forced dignity, despite their defeat. "The Admiral awaits you in the command hall," the lead officer stated flatly. Hannah nodded, and with Bo and diplomatic officer Sun Choi flanking her, followed their escort through the massive ship. The corridors were eerily quiet, with crew members watching them pass with a mixture of fear and hatred. The command hall had been converted into an impromptu negotiation space. At the center stood a large circular table, symbolic neutral ground between adversaries. Admiral Krell was already present, his tall Zithian frame imposing even in defeat. His 4 eyes tracked Hannah's approach with calculation. "Commander Park," he acknowledged with a stiff nod. "I would say welcome aboard my ship, but we both know the circumstances render such pleasantries hollow." "Admiral," Hannah replied simply, taking her seat across from him. For several moments, silence hung between them, representatives of 2 fundamentally different approaches to galactic civilization. "You have fought impressively," Krell finally said, each word seemingly painful to admit. for a species we once considered barely worthy of notice. We fought for our survival, Hannah responded, as did our allies, people who lived under hegemony rule for generations. The Admiral's upper eyes narrowed. Rebels and traitors. Freedom fighters, Sun corrected calmly, who remembered what it meant to determine their own destinies. Krell's fist came down on the table, but with less force than might have been expected. A gesture of frustration rather than rage. The galactic hegemony has maintained order for 12 centuries, he said. We brought stability to hundreds of worlds that would otherwise have destroyed themselves through war or environmental collapse. At the cost of their freedom, Hannah noted, order without liberty is just another form of prison. The Admiral studied her for a long moment. So what now, Commander? Your coalition controls our primary fleet yards. Your allies have risen up on 20 key worlds. Will you destroy what remains of our forces? Dismantle that hegemony completely? You could destroy us, the Admiral stated, a hint of challenge in his voice. We could, Hannah agreed, meeting his gaze steadily. But that's not our way. We offer peace. Real peace, not subjugation. She nodded to Sun, who placed a data tablet on the table and slid it toward the Admiral. On it was a document that represented months of work by representatives from Earth and their allies. The Galactic Concordat, Sun explained, a framework for a new relationship between all spacefaring species. Admiral Krell picked up the tablet, his skepticism evident. And what does this concordat propose? Autonomy for all worlds, Hannah said. Free trade, cultural exchange, mutual defense against external threats. No species will rule over another, but all will have a voice in matters that affect the galaxy as a whole. Idealistic nonsense, Krell scoffed, but he continued reading. Perhaps, Hannah acknowledged. But ideals are worth fighting for, worth building for. For nearly an hour, they discussed the terms. To Hannah's surprise, the Admiral's objections became increasingly technical rather than philosophical, the sign of a mind beginning to engage with possibilities rather than reflexively rejecting them. The Zithian High Council will never accept this, Krell finally said, placing the tablet down. They already have, Sun replied gently. We received their provisional acceptance yesterday. They await your recommendation. The Admiral's 4 eyes blinked in succession, a sign of shock in his species. They would abandon 12 centuries of tradition. They would adapt, Hannah corrected, as all successful species must. Outside the viewport, a new ship appeared, the Navar diplomatic vessel that had started the Alliance so many months ago. The sight seemed to drive home to the Admiral just how much had changed. You would allow Zithians representation in this concordat, even after all we have done? He asked. Especially because of what you've done, Hannah replied. Your people have knowledge and experience that will be valuable. We're not looking for revenge, Admiral. We're looking to build something better than what came before. Admiral Krell was silent for a long moment before speaking. I will need to consult with what remains of my command staff. Of course, Hannah agreed, rising from her seat. We'll return to the Defiance and await your response. As they turned to leave, the Admiral's voice stopped them. Commander Park, your ship's name, Defiance, was it chosen specifically for this conflict? Hannah smiled slightly. No, Admiral. It was named before we ever knew of the hegemony's existence. Perhaps the universe has a sense of irony. 3 weeks later, Earth's orbital station, Unity, hosted representatives from 27 species. The station had been badly damaged during the hegemony's initial attack on Earth, but now it had been rebuilt as a symbol of humanity's resilience and new role in galactic affairs. Engineer Mina Kang stood at the entrance to the newly constructed Great Assembly Chamber, watching as the delegates filed in. As chief designer of the space, she felt both pride and nervousness as her creation was put to use for the first time. Will it work as planned? Commander Hannah asked, joining her at the doorway. The acoustics are perfect, Mina confirmed. Every delegate will hear clearly regardless of their auditory capabilities, and the gravitational accommodations should make everyone comfortable regardless of their home world's conditions. Hana nodded appreciatively. And the seating arrangement? See for yourself, Minna said with pride, gesturing into the chamber. Instead of the traditional tiered arrangement that placed importance on height and visibility, Minna had designed a truly circular chamber where no species sat above another. The delegates' seats formed a perfect ring, with translation systems and environmental controls customized for each species' needs. It's perfect, Hana said softly. Equal ground for equal voices. The delegates took their places, humans alongside Navar, Krell warriors beside Vex scientists, and even a small delegation of Zithians, led by a subdued Admiral Krell. Former enemies now sat together as potential allies. Science Officer Junli approached, walking slowly with the aid of a cane, a reminder of injuries sustained during the final battle. It is quite something to see, he remarked. When I was a young scientist, I dreamed of meeting other intelligent species. I never imagined anything like this. Nor did I, Hana admitted. As the designated time approached, Hana made her way to the center of the circle. As commander of the Defiance and leader of the combined forces that had defeated the hegemony, tradition granted her the honor of opening the proceedings. She looked around at the assembled delegates, faces human and alien, some familiar and others still strange to her eyes, all watching, waiting for what would come next. Representatives of the galaxy's free peoples, she began, her voice clear and strong. We gather today to turn the page on an era of domination and begin a new chapter of cooperation. Hana moved to the central table where the physical concordat lay, an actual document on preserved paper, a symbolic touch insisted upon by several tradition-minded species. This concordat represents our shared commitment to a future where differences are respected, where unique perspectives are valued, and where no species stands above another. One by one, the representatives came forward to sign or mark the document according to their customs. When Admiral Krell's turn came, a hush fell over the assembly. The Admiral hesitated only briefly before pressing his hand to the document. As Hana signed the Galactic Concordat, establishing mutual defense and respect among all signatories, she thought of the long journey from that first confrontation. From the moment the Defiance had faced the hegemony cruiser alone and afraid, to this moment of new beginning. When all had signed, Hana addressed the assembly once more. The stars don't belong to any one species, she told them, her words simple but resonant with meaning. They belong to all who reach for them with hope instead of conquest. As applause and various sounds of approval filled the chamber, Hana caught Ta's eye across the room. Her faithful lieutenant smiled, a rare, unguarded expression of hope. Outside the station's viewports, ships from dozens of worlds orbited peacefully, including the battle-scarred Defiance. The vessel would soon be retired from military service, preserved as a reminder of what had been overcome. In its place would come new ships, not warships but exploration vessels, not carriers of weapons but bearers of knowledge and cooperation. The galaxy was vast, with countless worlds still undiscovered, and for the first time in over a millennium, those discoveries would be made in the spirit of curiosity rather than conquest. The age of the hegemony had ended. The age of the concordat had begun.